The desert wakes in silence. Not the silence of absence, but of awe, the kind that exists before creation speaks its first word. The air glows faintly, still cool with night, as a thin line of gold spills over the horizon. One by one, the dunes begin to shimmer, each grain of sand catching the newborn light like dust from a dream. Somewhere, a river stirs, a silver thread winding through endless sand, reflecting the first blush of dawn. Along its banks lie the bones of old temples, half buried and patient, waiting for sunlight to remind them who they were. The voice of the narrator drifts like the wind. You stand where the desert meets the dawn. The words are not invitation, but remembrance, as if the listener has been here before, long ago, in another lifetime when the sun itself was young. The light grows stronger, spilling across stone and shadow. From the east, the first sound rises, a low hum, neither wind nor water, but something older, the breath of the world itself awakening. Beyond the dunes, shapes begin to emerge from the haze, towers carved from gold-veined limestone, pillars crowned with fire, bridges of white marble crossing the shining river. The empire, nameless and eternal, rises once more beneath the eye of the sun. No smoke, no noise. Only the measured unfolding of life. Farmers kneel beside the water, offering the first handful of grain to the current before planting. Distant bells ring from temples where priests lift copper mirrors toward the sky, catching the light and sending it fluttering across the city like birds of flame. The people move in harmony, not rushing, not speaking, as though every gesture, every breath, is part of one vast and silent ritual. The empire is not merely awake, it is remembering itself. And at its heart stands a palace so vast it seems born from the earth rather than built upon it. Its walls gleam with sheets of beaten gold, its gates carved with the faces of forgotten gods. Beneath its highest dome burns a single flame, guarded by the wind and fed by oil that never runs dry. The people say it is the sun's reflection, gifted to their king so he might rule with light in his hand. The king himself is still unseen, only his shadow moves across the palace floor as he steps into the dawn. The world seems to bow, not in submission, but in recognition. For in this land, the king is not merely ruler, he is the living echo of the sun. He raises his hand, and light falls perfectly across the city, touching the statues, the fields, the faces turned toward him. It is not power that moves through him, but balance, the illusion that man and heaven can exist in perfect reflection. The narrator's voice softens. In those first hours, all was golden, the light, the silence, the belief that nothing made by human hands could ever fade. The river glitters, the towers breathe heat, and the world hums like a great heart newly formed. But beneath the splendor, something else stirs, faint, invisible, like a shadow waiting for its time. It is not evil, nor fate, only truth, that even the brightest light must one day lean toward dusk. For now, though, the empire dreams. The sun climbs higher, painting the world in colors too bright to name. The sand burns white, the river turns to molten glass, and the air itself trembles with devotion. From the distance, the sound of chanting rises, thousands of voices speaking one name in unison. It rolls across the desert like thunder softened by distance. The king appears then, his figure crowned in flame, his robes a living tapestry of gold. He stands upon the high balcony and looks out upon his city, his reflection glowing in every roof, every ripple of water, every pair of eyes turned upward. He closes his own eyes and listens, not to the people, not to the wind, but to the rhythm beneath it all. The pulse of stone, the breathing of light. In that moment, time itself seems to pause. The empire, caught between heartbeat and silence, holds its breath as though afraid to disturb perfection. The narrator whispers again. Every kingdom believes it will last forever. Every dawn believes it will never yield to night. Yet even the sun must bow before it rises again. The light shifts, deepens, no longer morning but something more ancient, the quiet certainty of eternity pretending to be day. And as the scene fades, the listener feels the warmth of that distant sun against their closed eyes. The hum of the empire becomes a lullaby. The wind carries the scent of myrrh and sand. The voice lowers to a whisper. Breathe softly. You stand at the beginning, where the dream of empire first met the light. The music fades into stillness. The world holds its breath. And the story begins. The morning deepens. The sun, now high above the desert, turns every surface to gold. From afar, the empire gleams like a mirage made real, a city so vast and luminous that even the horizon seems to bow before it. The air trembles with warmth and music. From the open courtyards rises the soft chorus of artisans at work, the measured rhythm of chisels meeting stone, hammers tapping in gentle harmony, the rustle of cloth, the murmur of prayers carried by the breeze. It is not the noise of labor, but the sound of devotion. The city does not build for need, it builds for reverence. The streets run like veins through marble and light. They are swept clean before the sun rises, then scattered with petals so that the feet of the faithful tread upon beauty alone. Along the main avenue, fountains leap in perfect arcs, scattering rainbows into the air. The water, fed by the sacred river, shimmers with flecks of silver as it falls into carved basins where children play and merchants wash their hands before trade begins. Everywhere, color lives. Walls painted in ochre and azure, canopies of woven silk strung between pillars, and rows of pomegranate trees blooming beside alabaster temples. The city breathes through its beauty. Above it all, the palace of the sun reigns, a vast fortress of radiance and calm. Its domes gleam like molten gold, its terraces spill over with vines and flowers that never wilt. Inside its marble halls, sunlight passes through panels of onyx and amber, bathing the corridors in honey-colored glow. Each step echoes softly, as if sound itself moves with reverence here. And there, beyond the colonnade, stands the king, the man whose presence turns ritual into eternity. He is dressed not in armor or jewels, but in light. His robe is white, trimmed with threads of gold that shimmer with every breath. His crown is slender, shaped like the rays of the morning sun. When he walks, even the dust seems to pause in the air, unwilling to settle until he has passed. He moves slowly through the palace gardens, where pools of clear water mirror the sky. Courtiers follow him at a respectful distance, their voices hushed, their eyes lowered. When he stops, they stop. When he turns his gaze toward the east, they do the same. But his thoughts are elsewhere, not in the walls he commands or the prayers whispered in his name. His eyes travel upward, to the boundless dome of blue, where no empire dares reach. Does the sun know it is worshipped? He asks softly, though no one answers. The courtiers bow lower, unsure whether he speaks to them or to the wind. He smiles faintly, the expression serene yet distant. Perhaps it burns not for glory, he murmurs, but for duty. Far below, the city continues its hymn of motion. The markets open, long rows of shaded stalls filled with copper vessels, glazed pottery, baskets of grain and saffron. Priests in white linen pass through the crowds, blessing trades with handfuls of sacred oil. The scent of bread and incense mingles with the heat, wrapping the air in comfort. On the river, slow barges drift between the quays, their sails painted with the symbol of the sun, a circle enclosed by 12 rays, each representing a virtue of divine order. The water reflects it perfectly, turning each ripple into a moving prayer. From the temple towers, singers begin their morning chants. Their voices rise and fall like waves, merging with the hum of the streets below. For a moment, it seems that the entire city breathes in unison, every life, every motion, perfectly synchronized with the rhythm of creation itself. The narrator's voice returns, soft and warm. There are moments in history when harmony feels eternal, when every stone and every soul seem aligned with the heavens. In those moments, mankind believes it has found perfection. But perfection, like sunlight, cannot last forever. As the day lengthens, shadows begin to stretch across the golden courtyards. The air grows heavy. The river glitters, yes, but beneath its brilliance the current deepens, slow, dark, knowing. The king stands once more upon the balcony, looking down at his city, at the towers that pierce the sky, the gardens that bloom without end, the people who bow at his name. His heart swells with pride, and yet, there is a quiet ache beneath it, a question without shape. Can the light ever be too bright, he wonders. Below, unseen by the nobles and priests, a group of laborers pause by the riverbank to drink. Their laughter is brief, genuine, a simple joy untouched by ceremony. The king watches them from afar, his smile fading. He turns away before he understands why. The narrator speaks again, voice low, thoughtful. The city of splendor does not yet know it lives within a dream. All perfection is borrowed from time, and all dreams, no matter how golden, begin to fade with the setting sun. The wind shifts, carrying with it a hint of sand from beyond the walls, the desert's whisper, soft but insistent. The king does not hear it. Not yet. He steps back into the palace, into corridors drenched with light, where priests wait with scrolls, architects with plans, and poets with praises. The day continues, bright and unbroken, as if eternity itself had taken residence here. The bells ring once more across the city, long and melodic, a call not to worship, but to wonder. And as they echo, the world glows with impossible beauty. For now, the empire is perfect. For now, the light still believes it will never bow. The sun climbs higher, pouring gold upon gold. Its light strikes the river, the domes, the pale quarries beyond the city where men and women move like grains of sand, countless, tireless, shining beneath the heat. From afar, the sound of their labor rolls like a deep drumbeat through the valley. Not the clamor of chaos, but rhythm, hammers falling in unison, chisels breathing in time, the steady pulse of an empire shaping itself against eternity. The empire builds not out of hunger or fear, but out of faith. To carve stone is to pray. To lift it skyward is to speak with the gods. At the edge of the quarry, a single figure stands apart, the architect, wrapped in linen the color of dust and dawn. He draws lines in the sand with a slender rod, marking not measurements but ideas. The geometry of the sacred. Triangles, circles, patterns meant to mirror the sun's path and the stars' eternal turning. To those who pass, his work looks like madness. To him, it is the divine made visible. Beside him waits the general, armor gleaming faintly beneath the dust, a calm shadow against the brightness. He watches the workers in silence, thousands of bodies moving in harmony, their chants rising like heat from the earth. He has commanded soldiers, not builders, yet the sight humbles him. They march without orders, he murmurs. The architect smiles faintly. Because they build what they believe. The sun does not command the flower to open, it simply rises. From morning until the shadow of noon, the empire hums. Slaves and free men alike haul stone along wooden sleds slick with oil. Women shape clay into tablets and jars. Boys grind pigments from crushed lapis and ochre for temple walls that will glitter with color long after their hands have turned to dust. The general moves among them, not as ruler but as witness. He speaks softly to the tired, helps lift fallen beams, and reminds them that the king watches from his high terraces, not with cruelty, but with pride. Each block, each carved face, each inscription of praise is a gift laid at the feet of the divine. But devotion is heavy. By midday, the air quivers with heat. The wind stills. The sun hangs mercilessly above, and the white stones blaze so brightly they seem to burn. The workers' skin darkens with dust and sweat. Their throats crack, their muscles tremble, but they do not stop. The rhythm continues, slower now, but unbroken. The architect moves through the site, his hands covered in chalk, his lips murmuring calculations. He places his palm against a half-finished column, smooth and cool beneath the sun, and closes his eyes. It listens, he whispers. Every stone remembers the hand that shaped it. Even silence leaves a mark. The general watches him with quiet curiosity. And when all this is finished, he asks. When the temples rise and the statues stand? What will it mean then? The architect turns to him, the light catching his eyes. Then it will mean nothing, he says softly. For nothing made by man is ever finished. A long pause follows, the kind that carries truth. In the distance, the king's banners flutter above the half-built temple, their gold thread flashing like captive sunlight. The general looks toward them and bows his head slightly. As the day fades, the sky turns molten. The workers begin to sing, a slow, low chant that rises with the rhythm of their hammers. It is not a song of joy or pain, but of belonging. The sound rolls across the desert like a wave, filling the valley, echoing off cliffs and water. The architect listens, then nods. Hear them, he says. The empire breathes through its builders. Their silence will one day be its voice. At twilight, when the work ceases, the site glows. Dust drifts through beams of light, turning to gold as it falls. The newly carved pillars stand like giants frozen mid-prayer, their shadows stretching long across the sand. The general walks between them, his armor catching the last of the sun. He sees the workers asleep beside their tools, their bodies curled like children, their hands still coated in powdered stone. The architect stands at the edge of the site, watching the stars appear one by one in the dimming sky. He speaks again, softly, to no one in particular. They build for eternity, yet eternity will build through them. They will be forgotten, but their work will not. That is the way of the sun, to burn and vanish, yet leave its warmth behind. The general closes his eyes for a moment and listens, to the faint sigh of wind over stone, to the slow settling of dust. There is peace in this exhaustion, a holiness in the ache of creation. Far away, in the palace, the king stands upon his balcony, watching the faint glow of torches in the distance, the heartbeat of his empire working into the night. He smiles, certain that greatness will last forever. But the stars above the quarries shine with quiet patience. They have seen countless empires rise beneath their light, and each believed the same. The narrator's voice returns, hushed as a prayer. To build is to dream. But even dreams must rest. The wind stirs once more, carrying the day's last dust into the dark. The hammers fall silent. The stones, warm from the sun, begin to cool beneath the coming night. And in that cooling, the world exhales, slowly, softly, the breath of gods and men alike. Night falls softly over the empire, wrapping the towers in a hush of violet and gold. The last light of day flickers upon the river, then fades, leaving behind a reflection of stars trembling upon its surface. The city sleeps in perfect order, the workshops silent, the gardens perfumed, the streets swept clean beneath the moon's pale gaze. Yet within the heart of the palace, one chamber never sleeps. The Temple of Stars, built when the empire was young, stands half within the earth and half beneath the sky. Its domed ceiling is pierced with tiny holes, so that when night arrives, constellations descend to rest upon its walls. Oil lamps burn in brass bowls, their flames breathing in rhythm with the wind. Smoke curls upward in silver ribbons, twisting into unseen shapes before vanishing into shadow. And in the center of this hush sits the oracle. They are veiled in fine linen, hands marked with ash and gold dust. Their eyes, hidden behind folds of silk, see not faces but patterns, the pulse of the unseen, the symmetry of fate. Before them burns a single flame, steady and small, surrounded by bowls of water that ripple with each whisper of wind. The door opens. Footsteps, light, deliberate, familiar. The king enters alone, wearing no crown, only a robe of white. His face, so often radiant in daylight, looks softer now, almost human beneath the flickering glow. He does not speak at first. The silence between them is its own ritual. At last, the oracle lifts a hand, the gesture slow as time itself. You have come again, they say, their voice neither man's nor woman's, low, echoing, ageless. I come as the sun comes, the king replies gently, to see that all still lives in its light. The oracle tilts their veiled head. And what of the shadow, my king? Do you not wish to see that too? A faint smile crosses his lips. There is no shadow where the sun reigns. The flame shivers. For a moment, the room seems to exhale. Then the oracle speaks again, softer now, yet with a weight that bends the air. When the sun bows, your name will fade. The words linger, low and resonant, falling into the space between heartbeat and silence. The king's brow furrows, not in anger but amusement. He has heard warnings before, from priests, from poets, from stars. All empires have their doomsayers. All kings learn to smile at them. The sun does not bow, he says. It burns. The oracle lowers their hands into the bowls of water, disturbing the stillness. Ripples spread, breaking the reflection of the flame into trembling shards. Even fire, they whisper, must one day rest. The king circles slowly around the flame, his eyes tracing the constellations that glitter across the domed ceiling. Each star, placed by the builders of old, marks the triumphs of the empire, its wars, its temples, its line of kings. He stops beneath the brightest star, his own. Rest, he repeats, testing the word. A king cannot rest while the world still moves in darkness. The oracle's voice is almost a sigh. It is not the world that moves in darkness, Majesty. It is we who mistake our light for the sun's. For a moment, neither speaks. Only the quiet crackle of the lamp flame fills the room, steady as a heartbeat. Then thunder murmurs far away, not loud, but distant, like something turning in its sleep. The king looks toward the doorway, toward the sound, then back to the oracle. You speak of storms, he says softly. But I have seen no clouds. They are already forming, the oracle replies. Not in the sky, in the hearts of men. He steps closer to them, his shadow stretching across the marble floor. Then we will teach them to worship again. The oracle does not answer. They lift a small vial from beside the flame and pour its contents into the fire. The smoke deepens, thick and blue, rising in slow spirals that fill the air. The scent is strange, sweet, almost sorrowful. Through it, shapes begin to appear, a crown falling into water, a city drowned in light, a single hand reaching upward from the sand. The king stares. What is this? Truth, says the oracle. Or memory, there is little difference. He turns from the vision, jaw tightening. You speak in riddles. The oracle's head tilts slightly. And you, my king, live in one. The silence returns, vast, complete, sacred. The king steps back. His hand brushes the stone wall where the carvings of stars meet shadow. The chill of it runs through his fingers. At last, he bows, not in belief, but in respect. Keep your watch, he says. When the sun falters, you may tell me so. And with that, he leaves. His footsteps fade into the distance until only the faint hiss of the lamp remains. The oracle lowers their head, the veil trembling as they whisper into the darkness. The sun has already begun to bow. Outside, the first wind of the night sweeps across the palace roofs, carrying the scent of rain and dust. Somewhere, a bell tolls once, low and lonely. The stars above the temple shift ever so slightly, as if something vast has turned its gaze upon the world. And deep beneath the palace, in the still chamber of light and smoke, the flame flickers, then steadies again. The prophecy lingers, unseen but alive, like a shadow waiting patiently for dawn. The morning rises heavy with heat. The air, usually soft with song and incense, now thrums with a low, distant pulse, drums, deep and patient, rolling like thunder over the plains. It is not a call to war, not yet. It is ceremony. A rhythm older than the empire itself. Along the grand road that leads east into the desert, the people gather in silence. They fill the terraces and temple steps, their faces bright with reverence. The sacred river runs beside them, wide and glittering, carrying its light toward the horizon as though to guide the way. Then, the gates open. The king's army emerges in procession, the sound of armor whispering like wind through reeds. The banners rise first, immense sheets of gold-threaded cloth catching the light, bearing the symbol of the sun, 12 radiant rays circling a single, unblinking eye. Behind them marched the soldiers, row upon row, their shields polished to mirror brightness, their sandals striking the earth in perfect time with the drums. The narrator's voice lowers. There are marches that sound like violence, and others that sound like prayer. This was both. At the head rides the king, crowned not with jewels but with a circlet of hammered bronze that gleams like dawn. His robe, once pure white, is now draped in crimson and gold, the colors of divinity. He does not speak, yet his silence carries farther than any command. Beside him rides the general, steady, solemn, the same patience in his eyes that lives in stone. He studies the horizon, the endless dunes shimmering under the weight of sunlight. The world looks as though it might melt into the sky. Behind them, the priests walk barefoot, carrying torches though the day is already aflame. They scatter powdered myrrh and grain onto the path, their chants weaving through the drumbeats, words lost to time, yet their cadence remains, a prayer for dominion, a promise of return. The people kneel as the army passes. Children throw petals into the dust, elders raise bowls of water toward the sun. None cry out, there is no need. Their devotion is quiet, like the empire itself, strong, certain, eternal. The king raises his hand once, a slow, deliberate gesture. The drums fall silent. The air itself seems to listen. He turns his gaze upward toward the blinding sky. For a moment, his face softens. There, against the vastness, the sun burns so bright it becomes formless. He whispers, almost to himself, we march not into darkness, but into light. Then the drums resume, and the earth begins to tremble once more. The general leans toward him. Majesty, he says quietly, light blinds as easily as it guides. The king smiles, not cruelly, but with the calm certainty of one who believes destiny wears his face. Then we shall teach the blind to see. They ride on. The city fades behind them, swallowed by haze and heat. The great walls shimmer like memory, then vanish. Ahead stretches the open desert, gold and white, endless, pulsing with mirage. The road bends and disappears into horizon, where heaven and sand are indistinguishable. As they march, the soldiers begin to hum, a low, wordless sound that grows until it fills the air, merging with the wind and the drums. It is not a song of conquest, but of belief that the sun itself travels with them, watching from above, its light their armor, its fire their strength. Hours pass. The sun stands high, merciless and perfect. Sweat gleams like metal upon their skin. The banners twist in the wind, each movement a slow dance of color and heat. The desert answers with silence, deep, immense, eternal. At the edge of the horizon, the mirage of mountains flickers, ghost shapes rising and fading with the shimmer of air. The general squints against the glare. Stone, he says quietly. Or illusion? The king does not turn. What is the difference, he replies, if both lead men forward? The army continues. The dust rises behind them like a golden veil, erasing their footprints as they go. Each step seems to carry them farther from the world and closer to myth. The narrator speaks softly, like wind through banners. And so the empire moved, not in haste, not in hunger, but in faith. For when men believe themselves divine, every road leads toward eternity. By dusk, the sun bleeds red across the dunes. The soldiers make camp, their fires like fallen stars. The drums fall silent, only the wind remains, whispering through the tents. The king stands alone on a ridge, watching the last lights sink into the earth. The desert is quiet now, a silence so complete it feels alive. He breathes deeply, the scent of sand and smoke filling his lungs. Somewhere behind him, the general approaches, carrying a bowl of water. The men are weary, he says. They march well, but the light is cruel. The king nods slowly, taking the bowl but not drinking. He pours the water onto the sand, watching it vanish instantly. Cruel, he murmurs, but faithful. The sun burns because it must. The general bows his head. And what of those who burn beneath it? The king looks toward the horizon, where the last traces of light still glow. Then they shall rise with it, he says. The night gathers, soft and deep. The fires flicker. The sound of the desert wind fills the world, a steady breath beneath the stars. The narrator whispers. The march of men is the march of time, slow, magnificent, and blind. And as the king closes his eyes, the drums fade into silence. The desert, vast and indifferent, listens. The sun sets red that evening, heavy and wide across the horizon. The light spills like blood over the dunes, bathing the world in the color of endings. From the ridge where the king stands, the conquered city lies below, silent, smoking, still. The wind moves through it first, stirring ash into the air. The smoke coils upward in long, slow spirals, carrying with it the faint scent of cedar, burnt oil, and stone. The city that had once gleamed with towers and gardens now glows faintly in ruin, not destroyed, only hollowed, like a great bell that has been struck one last time. The king watches from the balcony of a broken palace. His armor, still shining, reflects the firelight of fallen homes. Around him, soldiers move in weary silence, their faces gray with dust. None cheer. None sing. They stand like statues among the rubble, men who have touched victory and found it cold. The general kneels beside him, head bowed, one knee pressed into ash. His voice is quiet, nearly lost to the crackle of distant flames. It is done. The words linger, but the king does not answer. He looks toward the river that cuts through the city, once a ribbon of silver, now dark and swollen, reflecting the fires above it. In its current drift fragments of what was, a petal, a broken idol, a shard of mirror that catches the light one last time before sinking. The narrator's voice falls low, steady as the heartbeat of the dying day. He had gained everything the sun could see, yet felt the weight of something missing, the sound of the living world. The king closes his eyes. The wind carries to him faint echoes. A child crying somewhere far away, the creak of a fallen door, the whisper of wings as crows settle upon the walls. It is the sound of aftermath, not chaos, not peace, only what remains. He opens his eyes and turns toward the general. They called this city eternal, he says softly. Now its name will live only in dust. The general rises. His armor is dull now, streaked with soot. Eternity, he answers, has short memory, majesty. The king almost smiles. Almost. But his eyes linger on the flames below, on the red light dancing upon the river's surface. We have carried the sun too far, he murmurs. Now it burns without warmth. The oracle's voice stirs faintly in his memory, when the sun bows, your name will fade. He had once dismissed those words as ritual. Now they sound like truth spoken too late. He steps down into the street. The soldiers part before him, heads lowered. The dust clings to his robes, dulling the gold to gray. Around him, the city breathes in slow, uneven gasps, smoke rising from broken altars, wind tugging at empty banners. In one doorway sits an old woman clutching a clay jar, her face lined but calm. She does not flee. She does not beg. She simply watches him pass, her gaze steady, unafraid. The king stops. Their eyes meet for a moment. She whispers something he cannot hear, then turns her face toward the smoke. He moves on. At the river's edge, he pauses. The water ripples faintly at his feet, tinted red by fire and dusk. He looks into it and sees his reflection, blurred, fractured, half shadow, half flame. He kneels, dips his hand into the water. The warmth surprises him, it feels alive, as if the city itself still breathes beneath the ruin. He whispers to the river, carry it away. The current takes the ash, the petals, the fragments. The river flows on, indifferent, eternal. Above him, the sky deepens to indigo. The first stars appear, faint and cold, watching from a distance. The king lifts his gaze to them and feels a strange ache. Once, he had believed those lights mirrored his greatness. Now they seem far away, not condemning, only still. The general joins him, standing at his side. "Shall we rebuild, Majesty?" he asks. The king shakes his head slowly. "No. Let it rest. Even the sun must set." They stand together in silence. The city smolders quietly behind them, the fires softening to embers, the smoke turning pale. The night wind rises, scattering ash into the air, the last breath of what once was. The narrator's voice returns, like a distant echo carried by the breeze. So the conqueror looked upon his own reflection, and saw not triumph, but truth. For what is victory, if not the moment when the fire forgets what it burns for? The king closes his eyes. The drums of war are gone. Only the sound of the river remains, steady and calm, washing through the ruins. The world feels vast again, not conquered, not tamed, only vast. He turns from the city and begins to walk, his shadow stretching behind him like smoke. Above, the stars multiply. Below, the fires fade. The empire breathes out, long, slow, and quiet. And in that breath lies the first sound of sorrow. The palace glows again. Not with sunlight, but with flame. Hundreds of lamps flicker in the high halls, their golden light reflected in mirrored tiles and polished stone. Incense drifts through the corridors like breath, sweet, heavy, alive. The scent of myrrh and roasted fruit mingles with the faint hum of distant music. After the silence of conquest, the world exhales in splendor. The great hall is alive with sound, the rustle of silk, the murmur of voices, the bright ring of cups against gold plates. Musicians pluck strings from balconies draped in red fabric. Flutes sing like birds above the murmuring crowd, and dancers glide across the floor in slow circles, their veils catching light like water. Everywhere, there is abundance, platters of figs and honey, bowls of wine so dark they look like spilled night. Garlands hang from the pillars, the scent of lilies curling through the air. The walls are painted with scenes of triumph, the king's victories, the cities he has claimed, the banners of the conquered hanging now as decoration. At the head of the feast sits the king, his face calm, unreadable. The light of the lamps shivers upon his crown, turning each point into a star. Around him, poets recite verses, servants refill his cup, dancers bow at his feet. To any observer, this is glory made visible. And yet, the king's eyes wander. He sees movement, laughter, color, all of it bright and perfect, but it feels distant, hollow, like music heard through water. His gaze drifts toward the far end of the hall, to the empty seat once reserved for the oracle. The chair remains untouched, its shadow longer than any flame. He looks down at his cup. The wine trembles inside it, catching the reflection of the lamps until it looks like liquid fire. He raises it, then lowers it again. The cup feels heavy, not with weight, but with memory. The general sits a few seats away, quiet amid the noise. He eats little, speaks less. When their eyes meet, the king nods faintly, and the general answers with the smallest of gestures, understanding without words. They both hear it, the faint dissonance beneath the music. The laughter that lasts a moment too long. The joy that strains to fill a silence it cannot touch. The musicians change their rhythm. The dancers move faster, their bracelets chiming in waves. Gold flashes, silks flutter. The courtiers cheer. But in the midst of the noise, the king sees it again, a shadow slipping across the floor, small and quick, vanishing into the space where the light burns brightest. He leans toward one of the priests at his side. "Do you see it?" he asks softly. The man blinks, confused. "See what, Majesty?" The king's gaze lingers on the shadows between torches. "Nothing," he murmurs. "Only light." The priest smiles nervously and returns to his wine. The king sits back, his fingers tracing the edge of his cup. The music swells, laughter grows louder, but it cannot reach him. The walls seem to stretch, the air thick with warmth and scent, and in that richness he feels an ache, the weight of too much beauty, too much light. The narrator's voice whispers. Joy, when forced, becomes a mirror, showing not what is, but what was. The feast continues. Dancers spin, musicians play, courtiers toast. A poet rises and speaks of eternity, of a king whose name will never fade. The hall erupts in applause, yet beneath it, the king hears only the soft hiss of the lamps, the quiet breathing of the flames. He turns his gaze upward to the ceiling, a dome painted with the sun and its rays, encircled by 12 symbols of power. But the smoke from the lamps drifts upward too, and slowly, it begins to veil the painted light. The gold dims. The rays blur. The sun vanishes beneath its own shadow. He watches this and feels a strange calm. Perhaps, he thinks, even the gods grow weary of brightness. The general leans toward him, speaking softly over the music. The city rejoices tonight, Majesty. Shall we rejoice with it? The king smiles faintly. We are the city, my friend. It cannot rejoice without us. Yet even as he says it, he knows it isn't true. The people's joy, like the empire's light, no longer needs his command. It moves on its own, out of rhythm, beyond his reach. He lifts his cup once more, this time drinking deeply. The wine burns, warm and sharp, flooding his chest with memory. He closes his eyes and hears, faintly, the oracle's voice again, not warning now, but lament, the light that blinds cannot guide. When he opens his eyes, the hall has softened. The music slows, the laughter melts into murmurs. The lamps flicker, tired from their own brilliance. The king stands. The sound fades. One by one, the musicians still their strings, the dancers bow, the voices fall silent. The only sound left is the whisper of torches and the long breath of the wind moving through open doors. He looks over his court, at the shining plates, the silk, the jewels, and says nothing. His silence stretches through the hall until it becomes the truest thing in it. The narrator's voice returns, low and tender. And so the feast continued, laughter over emptiness, light over shadow, hearts too full to feel. The king leaves quietly. His footsteps echo down the marble corridor, fading into the hum of distant night. Behind him, the candles burn lower, their wax pooling, their flames trembling. And as the last note of music fades, the hall seems to exhale, a single, weary sigh of beauty finally aware of its own hollowness. The night falls clear and pale. The lamps of the palace have burned low, their smoke rising in gentle ribbons toward the high ceilings. Outside, the desert lies still, an ocean of silver sand under the faint shimmer of the moon. The wind has gone quiet, and the stars hang unmoving, like eyes that have seen too much. The king walks alone through the gardens. The feast has ended, the laughter long faded into the corridors, leaving behind only the soft hum of night insects and the scent of fading incense. The stones beneath his feet are cool now, the marble paths veined with moonlight. The gardens are immense, rows of cypress trees, pools of still water, lilies floating like stars fallen to earth. The fountains murmur softly, spilling thin streams of silver into the dark. He moves slowly, his robe trailing lightly across the path. In his hand, he carries no torch, only the moonlight follows him, resting gently on his shoulders like a second crown. He stops beside a reflecting pool. The water is so still that it mirrors the heavens perfectly. For a moment, he sees himself among the stars, the face of a man who was once the reflection of the sun. Now, beneath the moon, he looks smaller, dimmer, almost mortal. The narrator's voice whispers. Greatness shines brightest when it believes itself eternal, and fades the moment it begins to ask how long forever truly is. The king kneels beside the pool, tracing a finger through the water. The ripples distort his reflection, shattering his crown into fragments of light. The sound of the fountain becomes like breathing, slow, deep, ancient. He remembers the oracle's words again, the smoke and voice of prophecy echoing through his mind, "When the sun bows, your name will fade." For the first time, he wonders, what if fading is not a curse, but a mercy? He looks up at the moon. Its light feels different, gentler, distant, untouched by the pride of the day. The sun commands, but the moon listens. Perhaps, he thinks, the gods speak in silence, not flame. A soft footstep breaks his thought. From the shadows, the general approaches. He moves quietly, his armor absent, dressed in plain linen. He bows his head. "Majesty," he says, "I thought you might still be awake." The king smiles faintly. Sleep has no hold on those who rule by dreams. The general steps closer, his voice low. The people grow restless. The work, the taxes, the glory weighs heavy on them. The king listens, eyes still fixed on the reflection of the stars. Do they not see they labor for eternity? They see the stones, the general answers softly, but not the eternity. A pause. The water drips gently from the fountain. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf cries across the dunes. The king sighs. They built the walls that will outlast their names. Is that not enough? The general hesitates, then says, "Perhaps names should not be outlasted, Majesty. Perhaps they should be remembered." The words hang between them like mist. The king lowers his gaze. "You speak as though the end could touch me." The general's reply is almost a whisper, "It touches all things." The king looks again into the pool. His reflection wavers. The moonlight trembles on the water. For a moment, he sees not a ruler but a man, tired, uncertain, small against the vastness of night. He stands slowly. The robe falls from his shoulders, heavy with embroidery, and for an instant, it looks like a shadow slipping from his body. He steps closer to the fountain, his voice quiet, thoughtful. "Tell me, General, when I am gone, will the people still pray to the sun?" "They will pray to the dawn, Majesty," the general replies. "But they may no longer remember your name when it rises." The king's eyes close. The answer feels honest, and therefore holy. The narrator murmurs. So passes the hour when kings first meet their own reflection, when light reveals not power, but the limits of its reach. A breeze moves through the garden, cool and soft. The cypress trees sway, whispering faintly in the dark. The air smells of water and dust, the scent of things that endure quietly. The king looks toward the horizon. The first pale shimmer of dawn has begun to touch the sky, faint as a sigh. He feels it, not hope, but acceptance. The light will rise again, with or without him. He turns back toward the palace. The moonlight slides across his face, softening it, erasing the mask of power. For a moment, he looks almost at peace. As he walks away, the fountains continue to whisper. Their sound becomes the voice of the night itself, steady, timeless, forgiving. And above him, the stars begin to fade, one by one, as if bowing before the sun that has not yet risen. The narrator's final words float like wine through leaves. Even the brightest kings must learn what the dawn already knows, that to rise, one must first become shadow. The garden falls silent again. The moon lowers itself toward the horizon. And in that stillness, the empire holds its breath. The first thunder came without warning. It rolled across the desert like the breath of a sleeping god, deep and endless, shaking the air until even the marble floors of the palace seemed to hum. The sky, once a perfect blue, had grown heavy with clouds, strange, shifting things that swallowed the light, turning the gold of the empire into muted bronze. From the highest balcony, the king stood watching. His hands rested on the cold stone rail. Below, the city trembled beneath a wind that carried dust and fragments of banners. The sun, his son, was nowhere to be seen. For the first time in years, the world did not shine. The courtyards filled with murmurs. Servants whispered prayers, priests lit torches at noon, children stared upward as if the heavens had forgotten them. The air felt wrong, too still, too charged, as though the empire itself had stopped breathing. Inside the palace, the general found him standing alone. His crown lay on a nearby table, its jewels dim. "Majesty," he said softly, "the people are afraid." The storm. The king did not turn. His eyes followed the slow swirl of sand beyond the walls, the way it climbed the steps like a tide. "Do you hear it?" he asked quietly. "The wind," the general replied. "No," said the king. "The silence beneath it." The general hesitated, then stepped closer. "This storm will pass." "They always do." The king shook his head slowly. "Not this one. This feels like remembering." The thunder deepened, rolling like the echo of drums, the same rhythm that once led his armies across the sands. Lightning flashed, distant but clear, revealing the spires of the city bending beneath the wind. The narrator's voice drifts like the storm itself. When empires fall, they do not break in battle. They dissolve in recognition. The king leaves the balcony and walks through the great hall. The torches flicker wildly, the tapestries sway as though breathing. Every step echoes through the vast space like the beat of time itself, slowing, steady, final. He passes the empty throne room, the seat of light now shadowed, its pillars streaked with the soot of old torches. The flame of the eternal lamp shivers, almost out. In the distance, a temple bell begins to toll, slow, uneven, uncertain. The king pauses to listen. It is not a sound of mourning, nor of triumph. It is simply a sound that says, something is ending. He climbs the final stair to the highest terrace, where the wind roars like an ocean. The general follows, stopping a few steps below him. Lightning cuts the horizon. For a moment, the entire empire flashes into view, the river like a strip of mercury, the gardens drowned in dust, the towers bending like reeds. The king raises his face to the storm. Rain begins to fall, the first in many years. It strikes his skin cold and clean. The dust on the stone turns dark, the scent of wet earth rising like incense. The general calls out, his voice carried away by wind. "Majesty! Come down, it is not safe." The king turns, his eyes calm, almost peaceful. "The sun must bow," he says, "before it rises again." His robe whips around him, the crimson darkening with rain. He steps to the edge of the terrace and looks down at the city, his creation, his reflection, his dream. And then, he lets the crown fall from his hand. It hits the stone softly, a sound lost beneath the storm. The narrator's voice lowers to a hush. No hand tore the crown away. No enemy struck him down. He simply released what the light no longer needed to hold. Below, the thunder rolls again. The towers shudder. Statues tilt and fall, their faces crumbling into the sand. The banners tear, the flames bow out. The river floods its banks, washing the dust from broken walls. The general kneels in the rain, his head bowed. Around him, the soldiers stand motionless, their armor streaked with water and ash. No one moves. No one speaks. The empire itself seems to wait for permission to breathe. The king closes his eyes. The rain runs down his face, tracing the lines time had written there. For a moment, he feels light again, not the weight of command, but the freedom of surrender. He whispers, to no one and to everything, "Let the sun rest." A single flash of lightning tears the sky apart, and for an instant, it seems as though the heavens themselves bow. Then, silence. The storm fades slowly, its voice dissolving into drizzle. The clouds begin to part, revealing the faint glow of twilight. Not gold, not fire, only the quiet blue of evening, soft and endless. The king remains still. The world, cleansed and bare, stretches before him. The city below glimmers faintly through the mist, its walls glistening like glass. It no longer looks eternal. It looks human. The narrator whispers, the words barely audible. And so the sun bowed. Not in defeat, but in grace. For even light must learn to rest. The final thunder murmurs in the distance. The torches in the city gutters out one by one. The last sound is rain against stone, a slow, steady rhythm, like the pulse of a world remembering how to breathe again. The king lowers his head, the storm passing through him, and in that stillness, something greater than victory begins, the peace that follows when ambition finally sleeps. The storm is long gone. The sky above the desert is pale again, not bright, but endless. The wind moves softly across the dunes, carrying with it the scent of rain long since vanished. There is no sound of drums, no chanting, no footsteps of armies. Only the slow, patient breath of the world reclaiming itself. Where once an empire rose in stone and gold, now the sand stretches unbroken. The great roads are gone, buried beneath the shifting dunes. The towers that touched the clouds lie shattered, their marble veins worn smooth by centuries of wind. And yet, beneath the ruin, something remains. A column stands half buried, carved with symbols the sun still traces each dawn. A piece of wall glimmers faintly, its painted gods faded but not forgotten. The river, though changed, still moves, smaller now, quieter, winding like memory through the hollow of the land. The narrator's voice drifts like the desert air. Silence is not absence. It is the world listening to itself. Nomads wander here now, quiet figures wrapped in linen, their camels slow and patient. They pause sometimes near the ruins, where the wind hums through broken arches like the low note of a forgotten hymn. The children ask who built such things, and the elders shake their heads. The Sun People, they say softly. The ones who dreamed of forever. In the heart of the old city lies what remains of the Temple of the Oracle. Its entrance is half hidden by sand, its ceiling open to the sky. A single shaft of light falls through the broken stone, illuminating the altar below, bare, except for a few grains of dust that glimmer like gold in the still air. If one listens long enough, one might hear the faintest echo of a voice, not prophecy, not warning, just memory. The sound of a breath taken in reverence. The hush before words that were never spoken. The desert moves slowly, shaping and reshaping what it touches. Each gust of wind erases a line, then draws another. What was once a city becomes a dune, then a valley, then a whisper of form returning to the earth. The narrator continues, voice tender and infinite. Empires do not die. They sleep, dreaming through the dust until time learns their names again. The sun climbs higher, turning the sand into waves of light. Heat ripples across the plain like a mirage, and for a moment, the ruins seem to shimmer back into being. Towers rise again, briefly, carved in sunlight. The faint echo of music drifts across the dunes, a memory caught between worlds. Then, as the wind changes, it all dissolves. A lone traveler kneels beside a cracked stone, brushing away sand. His fingers uncover a carved sigil, a circle surrounded by rays. The sun. He studies it for a moment, silent, before covering it again with care, as if protecting a sleeping child. The air hums faintly, warm and still. The desert at midday is neither empty nor cruel, only vast. Its silence carries the weight of everything that came before, the rise, the march, the feast, the fall. It holds them all without judgment, without grief. The light is the same light. The wind, the same wind. At dusk, the world softens again. The shadows stretch long across the sand, the dunes glowing amber and rose. In the far distance, the river mirrors the sky, a single thread of silver beneath the fading sun. The narrator whispers, like an evening prayer. All things that burn must cool. All voices must fade, that the earth may listen again. As night descends, the stars return, countless, sharp, eternal. They do not weep for the fallen kingdom. They simply shine, as they always have, as they always will. Beneath their gaze, the ruins sleep. The sand covers. Wall glimmers faintly, its painted gods faded but not forgotten. The river, though changed, still moves, smaller now, quieter, winding like memory through the hollow of the land. The narrator's voice drifts like the desert air. Silence is not absence. It is the world listening to itself. Nomads wander here now, quiet figures wrapped in linen, their camels slow and patient. They pause sometimes near the ruins, where the wind hums through broken arches like the low note of a forgotten hymn. The children ask who built such things, and the elders shake their heads. The Sun People, they say softly. The ones who dreamed of forever. In the heart of the old city lies what remains of the Temple of the Oracle. Its entrance is half hidden by sand, its ceiling open to the sky. A single shaft of light falls through the broken stone, illuminating the altar below, bare, except for a few grains of dust that glimmer like gold in the still air. If one listens long enough, one might hear the faintest echo of a voice, not prophecy, not warning, just memory. The sound of a breath taken in reverence. The hush before words that were never spoken. The desert moves slowly, shaping and reshaping what it touches. Each gust of wind erases a line, then draws another. What was once a city becomes a dune, then a valley, then a whisper of form returning to the earth. The narrator continues, voice tender and infinite. Empires do not die. They sleep, dreaming through the dust until time learns their names again. The sun climbs higher, turning the sand into waves of light. Heat ripples across the plain like a mirage, and for a moment, the ruins seem to shimmer back into being. Towers rise again, briefly, carved in sunlight. The faint echo of music drifts across the dunes, a memory caught between worlds. Then, as the wind changes, it all dissolves. A lone traveler kneels beside a cracked stone, brushing away sand. His fingers uncover a carved sigil, a circle surrounded by rays. The sun. He studies it for a moment, silent, before covering it again with care, as if protecting a sleeping child. The air hums faintly, warm and still. The desert at midday is neither empty nor cruel, only vast. Its silence carries the weight of everything that came before, the rise, the march, the feast, the fall. It holds them all without judgment, without grief. The light is the same light. The wind, the same wind. At dusk, the world softens again. The shadows stretch long across the sand, the dunes glowing amber and rose. In the far distance, the river mirrors the sky, a single thread of silver beneath the fading sun. The narrator whispers, like an evening prayer. All things that burn must cool. All voices must fade, that the earth may listen again. As night descends, the stars return, countless, sharp, eternal. They do not weep for the fallen kingdom. They simply shine, as they always have, as they always will. Beneath their gaze, the ruins sleep. The sand covers what it must, guards what it cannot forget. And through it all, the wind keeps singing, not a song of mourning, but of balance. The gentle hymn of the world remembering how to be still. The final words drift like sand through fingers. The desert forgets nothing. It simply waits, patient as time, kind as silence. The sound fades to wind, the rustle of grains shifting endlessly. The empire's last breath becomes the earth's sigh. And in that vast quiet, the listener can almost feel it, the pulse of eternity beneath the dust. Centuries have passed. The empire is dust. The kings are names half erased. The river has changed its course. Yet the sun still rises, pouring its light across the same sands that once glowed beneath its crown. And in that light, a man kneels. He is a chronicler, not a conqueror, not a priest, only a seeker of truth. His robes are simple, the color of faded parchment. A small tent stands behind him, its canvas flapping softly in the wind. Around him, scattered papers flutter like pale wings, covered in marks of ink and care. He brushes sand away from a carved stone. Beneath his fingers, a line of text appears, the ancient language of a forgotten people, the script that once filled palaces and temples. He traces the grooves, his touch reverent. "Still here," he murmurs, smiling faintly. "Even the wind could not erase you." The sun warms his back as he opens a leather-bound book, worn, patched, beloved. Each page is filled with drawings, fragments of walls, broken statues, shards of pottery, every detail recorded by hand. Between the sketches, he has written his thoughts, not as facts, but as prayers. The narrator's voice drifts, soft as the breeze. He does not seek to resurrect the past. He only wishes to listen to it. Inside the ruins of what was once the Temple of the Oracle, the chronicler sets his lamp. Its small flame flickers against the walls, illuminating faint carvings. Figures raising their hands to the sun, lines spiraling like rays. He copies them slowly, every curve, every mark. Hours pass. The world outside darkens to gold, then violet. The lamp grows warm beneath his hand. He pauses, pen suspended, as a shadow falls across the page. He looks up. A shaft of late sunlight enters through a crack in the roof, striking the altar at the temple's center. Dust dances within it, shimmering like stars. For a moment, it seems the entire room is breathing. He whispers to himself, almost afraid to disturb the stillness. They thought they built for eternity, but perhaps eternity builds through them. The words linger in the air, trembling with quiet truth. He stands and steps closer to the altar. There, half buried in sand, he finds a piece of gold, a fragment of a crown, dull and bent with age. He lifts it carefully, brushing away the dust. In its surface, he sees not his reflection, but light, soft and broken, yet still alive. The narrator's tone deepens, calm, reflective, soothing. Even forgotten glory remembers how to shine. The chronicler sets the fragment beside his lamp and returns to writing. His quill moves slowly, each word deliberate. He no longer writes history as conquest, but as memory, the story of what remains after power sleeps. His final entry reads: "They called him the Sun King. His temples are dust, his banners gone. Yet the light that crowned him still falls upon this sand. And in that light, we remember, not his power, but his wonder." He closes the book gently. Outside, the night deepens. The stars rise, countless and clear. The wind moves softly through the ruins, carrying the sound of turning pages. He steps outside the temple. The dunes shimmer under moonlight, smooth and endless. The world feels vast, alive, forgiving. He looks toward the horizon, where a faint glow still lingers, not the fire of empire, but the quiet gleam of understanding. He smiles. "Perhaps," he says softly, "the sun never belonged to kings at all." The narrator's voice, now like a lullaby. And so the chronicler wrote, by lamplight and patience, what the empire could not, that the truest monuments are not built from stone, but from remembrance. He packs his papers, folds his tent, and leaves before dawn. His footprints fade quickly behind him, erased by the same wind that once sang through golden halls. But the pages remain, carried forward by time, waiting for another hand to open them, another mind to wonder. And when the sun rises again, the light touches both the ruins and the book, as if to say, all light returns. The night has grown deep. The stars shimmer quietly above the sleeping desert, countless and unchanged. The air moves softly, cool and dry, carrying with it the scent of stone and wind, the perfume of centuries breathing in rest. The ruins below are silver in the moonlight, their sharp edges softened by time. The world no longer remembers where palaces ended and dunes began. The narrator's voice returns. Calm, slow, near a whisper. You lie in bed now, centuries away, yet the same wind that once moved their banner still moves through your window. The sound of the breeze blends with a faint hum, distant bells, perhaps, or the rhythm of your own breathing. The story that began in sunlight now rests in shadow. The empire that once dreamed of eternity has become what all things must, a memory folded into the quiet fabric of the earth. In that stillness, the truth feels gentle, nothing is truly lost. Every stone that fell became sand, every name that faded became whisper, every ending became the beginning of silence, and silence itself is holy. The voice continues, softer still, as though speaking from within a dream. When the king sought to rule forever, he became dust. When the chronicler sought only to remember, the dust became light again. And so it always is. Images drift slowly across the listener's mind, the golden city glowing at dawn, the march beneath endless skies, the feast of laughter, the lonely garden, the storm. Then the ruins, the scholar, the rising sun. Each scene fades gently into the next, like ripples on water fading into calm. You can almost hear it, the quiet murmur of history asleep. The narrator speaks again, voice tender as the desert wind. Empires do not die. They dream. They dream through us, in the stories we tell, in the lessons we whisper to ourselves when the world grows still. The stars seem to tremble, their light pulsing like breath. Somewhere beyond them, the memory of the Sun King still burns, not as flame, but as warmth. His name is gone, but his light remains, scattered in every dawn. The desert sighs. The wind changes direction. The world turns its face toward the coming day. And then the voice says, like the final line of a prayer. And so, as the dust settles beneath the stars, we remember, not the kings who rose, but the light that outlived them. A pause. The sound of air moving through sand. Sleep now. The empire has found its rest. The sun has bowed. The silence keeps watch. The music fades, a single note, drawn out and gentle, like the fading echo of a bell. The last image lingers. The dunes glowing faintly under moonlight. The ruins breathing quietly in the dark. The eternal hush of a world that has finally stopped trying to last forever, and in that surrender, has become eternal after all.